Welcome to another episode of Ghoul Talk Legends, Pen Pal Edition. In this episode, you'll hear me tell David a story that has ties to a very famous legend coming out of London.
My name's David, and this is where my dear friend Andrea and I share tales of the ghostly, the ghoulish, and the ghastly from across the pond. I myself am a skeptic, and Andrea is more of a believer. But that said, we both love to share historic tales of the macabre from Canada and the UK. On this episode, Andrea is going to take us back to the chilly and rain-soaked nights of the fall of 1899 to bring us the story that would become known as the Canadian Jack the Ripper.
Agnes Bings was a 44-year-old business owner in the downtown core of Victoria. She ran a local bakery named the Store Street Bakery. Not only having the full responsibilities of running the store, she was also the mother of a young child and cared for her ill husband who was not able to help with the business or much of the household duties due to his ailments. Yet, with all of these responsibilities, Agnes prevailed. On a cold and dreary fall night, September 29, 1899, Agnes had been struggling to finish her work and close up shop so she could catch the last bus home. Unfortunately, she was too late as a bus drove past her as she was running to the bus stop, fighting with the unfavorable autumn elements and struggling with the heavy load of parcels she was carrying. With another attempt to get home quickly to tend to her family, she decided to walk along the route of the E&N railway bridge leading into Vic West. The railway veered through the rail yards, areas of construction, and undeveloped lands prior to leading into the residential area. Not only were there safety concerns for walking over the unguarded trestle, this was not known to be the safest area where signs of petty crimes were apparent, and a common route where transients and pub-goers often staggered through during the night. It certainly was not an area that would have been considered safe for a tired and overburdened woman to be venturing into late at night. As the early morning hours approached, Agnes's husband began to worry. Unable to do much himself due to his disabilities, he contacted the police, who took no time starting their search. The police took to an area nearby to the bakery, known as the Red Light District. This was known for its unruly pubs and ladies of the night. Agnes was widely known in the Victoria Core, having a favorable bakery, so it wasn't a surprise that two of the local prostitutes were able to confirm seeing Agnes walking towards the trestle with a heavy load just shortly after midnight. Police knew the risks and common occurrences of drownings over this trestle and believed that was the likely cause of Agnes's disappearance. As fears rose with the morning light, these fears grew into a reality. Agnes's body was found, though it wasn't by drowning. Her body was noticed against a telegraph pole, and upon nearing her body, the police revealed the grim discovery, confirming that she was murdered. Local news groups were describing the crime as being too revolting for publication, and it was. Agnes was found unclothed. Her body was mangled, showing signs of strangulation, and found mutilated. She had been disemboweled, where her internal organs were found strategically placed around her body in a Jack the Ripper-like fashion. Even the police were horrified. Though Victoria had seen its fair share of gruesome murders during this time, one of this magnitude was the first for the city. Rumors began to swirl that Jack the Ripper had escaped England on one of the HBC ships that made it to Vancouver Island, where he was lesser known and could more easily hide within the population, finding prey without the risk of being caught. This rumor was heightened by theories coming out of London that even though Jack's last murder was 11 years prior, he had never been caught, though there was a trail of similar murders across Europe that led to the route crossing the oceans and arriving in Victoria. This is where the grim murders seem to have ceased, at least until they started being reported in Canada. Another theory was that there was a copycat Jack the Ripper, and it was believed that it may have been two men, known to police, who took the opportunity to keep the town under lock for weeks on end, making curfews an opportune time for any thief to sneak around the town unbeknownst. The final theory led to the arrest of David Mcdonald Gordon. 73-year-old Gordon, a known drifter at times and former veteran, had been hired as an auxiliary constable to assist in the murder case of Agnes. As investigators were reviewing the case, Gordon seemed to know too much about Agnes and what happened that night. Having too much knowledge on the case, suspicions grew, leading to his accusation. However, in the interim, Gordon was arrested for stealing a watch, and then he died shortly after being placed in prison. Even after his death, he had been formally accused of killing Agnes, but the case still remained as an unsolved mystery and noted as being one likely to never be solved. Was David Gordon the murderer of poor Agnes, suffering from post-traumatic delusions? Or was this a work of two opportunist copycats, dubbed as a Canadian Jack the Ripper? Or did Jack the Ripper actually find his way overseas to terrorize the unsuspecting Canadians? Though we will likely never know the truth, even after 100+ years later, many still think twice about crossing that bridge at night, keeping a close eye over their shoulder in fear that Jack might still be lurking in the shadows. Over the years, me and various team members from Unearthing Shadows Paranormal have visited the site where Agnes's ghost is believed to be seen. One of these areas, now known as the Johnson Street Bridge, back at the time was a trestle that Agnes walked across before her untimely death. What's commonly reported is seeing a woman in clothing that doesn't necessarily fit with today's fashion trends, seemingly more of the Victorian era, walking across the bridge. Very gray appearance, like gray skin, gray hair, gray clothing with some color. It's almost described like when black and white TVs were first colored and it still had that gray tone. And she's also seen with a bit of a mist, like a blur around her. So people are often confused and taken back, but instantly focus on her because of this unusual appearance. People have called out to her, and no acknowledgement from her at all as she disappears over the bridge into the night. We have gone down there quite a few times at night, especially around midnight, which is often when she is reported to be seen. And a couple of times we have seen some shadow figures and some blurry mists that you can't quite make out. And one area that still very commonly reports seeing a woman in gray is the Delta Ocean Point Resort. This is across the Johnson Street Bridge and the area that Agnes was murdered. Especially in the lobby, that was considered to be the exact location that her body was found. Visitors and staff members of the hotel have all encountered various forms of feeling this unease when you're walking through the lobby. They've also noticed multiple times that there's a woman who seems just very out of place and not matching colors that you would expect to see a person standing there, again, being very grayed. Now, there's been a few times we've gone down there and we've kind of seen something gray, something shadowish, but nothing really conclusive. I would certainly say that there had been a number of us that would say we felt some unease in the lobby of this hotel, but it's hard to confirm that because we are aware of the stories. So often, these horrific murders, it's so unfortunate for the person and what they must have been going through in the last moments of their life. All that trauma, fear, stress, post-traumatic stress, and I believe that carries through into the afterlife, which would make sense appearing in a gray aura because this person is still probably carrying that with them. I do not feel that this is a residual haunting, but I also feel that Agnes is probably not aware of her surroundings at all. It's not necessarily that I'm saying she doesn't know that she has passed on. I think that she's still in a state of trauma. She probably hasn't accepted that she's passed on and just wandering, probably has no clue at all, almost like somebody with amnesia. It's very common with these really horrific murders. That poor woman, may she rest in peace.
The true identity of Jack the Ripper has never been discovered. Could the elusive killer have migrated from the dark and murky streets of Victorian London's Whitechapel district to the Pacific coast of Canada? Or an equally terrifying thought that the murder was a copycat killing in an age where word of mouth and newspapers were the only medium by which the killer could have researched Jack's MO. Perhaps in these modern times there is another potential Jack nearby, waiting for just the right moment to strike.